Welcome to the show. Ivy Nation Sports Talk up rolling on a Thursday, 9 days away from Notre Dame football. I'm sitting across from Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Hope you're having a good one today. Beautiful, beautiful day outside. Things going well for you today, Jess?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. Just works.
Nothing stolen out of your driveway or anything like
No,
that?
nothing stolen today.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. Sounds like a very quality, productive day that you had. I tell you what, man, shout out to the Pat McAfee show. They were talking about this today. They did a show today. They're based in Indianapolis. They did a show, and then they were apparently going pretty much right to the airport, getting on a plane, flying to Dublin, because Florida State, Georgia Tech in Dublin Saturday, and College Game Day is going to be there. So they're flying to Dublin. They will arrive at Dublin Friday morning, 5 a.m. Dublin time, sleep for a little bit. I think he said there's like a game day meeting or something in the afternoon. Then they'll do their show at like 5 p.m. Dublin time Friday, and then go out and do some wilding, like after the show, whatever trouble they get into. And then they've got College Game Day Saturday. That's a pretty wild, fast and furious little trip, but I think that would be a lot of fun. Something like that.
They are hitting the ground running fast and furious. But to me, it's like that's college football. It's the beginning of the season.
Yeah, baby.
When things get going, they get going. There's really no in between. But going across the country, like leaving the country, it's going to catch up to them at some point.
I see USMA 87 is here, and he was asking yesterday about the line on the Notre Dame Texas A&M game, the line in the over-under. We were talking about that a little bit yesterday. The line is Notre Dame is +3 right now, and I've seen some people kind of, freaking out a little bit on the boards about, how are we a 3-point underdog and all this stuff? And it's, the line has moved.
It's better. I like that because I'm getting more value on the money line.
Well, and there's a couple things that go with it. One, I mean, where are we at right now? The line moving within the last few days only means that money is going on Texas A&M. And so they're, that's what Vegas does. The fact that Texas A&M, as the favorite, it's gone from like 1.5 to 3 where it is right now. That just means money has gone to Texas A&M. So Vegas, has moved the line a little bit, trying to get some back. But yeah, I checked a couple of different apps today. You talk about that money line. Notre Dame is +118 on FanDuel on the money line. DraftKings, they're +120 on the money line. Whereas like A&M is -105 and Notre Dame is -115 on the points. Texas A&M -118 and -102, like on DraftKings, between DraftKings and FanDuel. So yeah, I mean, if you care about that line, just go throw your money at it. I guess if you're that confident.
I got a bonus bet of like $250 from FanDuel, and I think I'm going to put it all on the Notre Dame money line here in a little bit, while I can still get the odds where I want them. It's
what happened to Jesse? Was done gambling for a while. What happened to that?
Well, I hit a big bet.
What happened to that guy? Oh, so all bets are off, is what you're saying now.
I am bought back in.
All right. Well, it is we in, we out day. Speaking of back in, good to have you in for the first time actually this week. We're less than a week away from our first game week, baby, because Monday starts it up. And of course, this time a week from now, we'll be hearing some of Marcus Freeman's final comments as the Irish get ready to head down to College Station to Texas A&M. And then we'll have our first countdown to kickoff show next Friday as well. So looking forward to all of that. Hit the like button if you would as you come in. And of course, we in, we out, the place to submit those questions. You have to be a new Champions Lounge subscriber at Irish Breakdown. And just go there, subscribe, and then you can comment on all the stuff you want, get all the good intel you want and everything else. And you can throw in we out questions like Law Dog did for this show. So let's just fire it up with this. We in, we out. There'll be no substitutions along the offensive line for Notre Dame in the Texas A&M game.
I'm just gonna say out because I think there's like 5 or 7 guys who can play, and I think if there is some sort of struggle early, or if they want to keep a certain spot fresh, that we could see it. So I don't know. I just think I would lean more towards at least one guy will get some sort of rotation. I don't know who it's going to be.
Joe says have to keep them fresh. Jason says, does rotation count? Absolutely it counts, because basically it's like you're either in the starting lineup or you're not. And if you're not in the starting lineup and you come on the field, you are a substitute. You have made a substitution in that case. DJ doesn't think they will. Jason thinks they will. I'm going to be out on this as well. I do think that, especially, let's say it's even Pat Coogan at left guard, and you've got Rocco Spindler sitting on the bench, or Sam Pendleton sitting on the bench, and then you've got Anthony Knapp potentially out there at left tackle. I think that you've got basically 3 starting guards just to begin with Coogan, Spindler, and Trouth. And I think at some point somebody gets a little bit of a breather, because like, what even happens, like we're talking all about the heat and all that stuff. What if somebody gets a cramp in his leg and has to come out for a little bit? So I think we're going to see. I'm not saying they're going to be running guys in and out the whole game or any of that kind of stuff, but I just feel like I feel like the circumstances dictate that there's a much greater chance that you see a substitution than in a regular type situation, with the heat and everything else that you're going into, and you're finding out what the offensive line is all about. Next one, Riley Leonard will complete more than 60% of his passes in game 1. In or out on that?
I'll say in. I think there's going to be a lot of high completion type passes, even if they're not things that are going for big chunk plays. I still think you'll see, especially in the, RPO type offense, I think there'll be a lot of, quick reads, get the ball out, especially kind of build momentum, confidence early on in the game. So I think that's a good number, and I'll go in.
Yeah, I think he'll complete at least 60% of his passes. And again, I know you look at his career stats, and it's a little bit up and down, but I keep going back to last year before the injury. The guy was completing better than 70% of his passes. Now, he had a game or two where he wasn't always up there over 60 and 70%, but I think he's going to be on in this game, so I'm in on it. From Frosty 10, in or out, Jeremiah Love has 100+ yards from scrimmage in the opener.
I mean, Notre Dame's going to want to run the ball. There's no denying that, and we all know that Jeremiah Love is going to work out of the slot as well. So I would have to say, if they have a successful game plan and they go on and win this game how they're supposed to, I think a large part of that is because of Jeremiah Love. So I'm going to just say in, because I think they're going to have to establish the run and they're going to win this game. So I'll go in.
I'm in as well. I mean, let's say he gets 50 rushing yards. Will he get 50 receiving yards? I mean, I think he's going to have better than 50 rushing yards. I mean, they're going to feed Jeremiah Love quite a bit. I think it was the very first time we got to talk to Marcus Freeman when fall training camp started. What did he say? It's not rocket science. You got to find a way to get Jeremiah Love the football. And I think they're going to get him the football as much as possible, whether that's running the ball or receiving the ball. He's a home run threat every time that he touches it. So I'm going to be over for Jeremiah Love as well. Also from Frosty, in or out, Notre Dame goes 11 and 1 or better and hosts a round one playoff game this year.
Yeah, I'm in on that. I think that as long as everything goes to plan and Notre Dame kind of takes care of business, I do believe that they'll go at least 11-1 and host a playoff game. But I would say the big but is, what happens in this Texas A&M game. If they lose this Texas A&M game, that's already one of their mulligans off the board, and I could see them having potentially another mulligan, in the remaining 11 games. I think at worst, I see this team going 10-2.
Yeah, a lot on this game. I think that a lot of people think that way, like you. The schedule obviously sets up. You lose this game against Texas A&M, then I think that all bets are off. It definitely changes what you. Not that they can't be a playoff team, but it'll change basically the ceiling for this team. It's interesting. Some of the projections, some of the playoff projections that I've seen this week, and multiple people have Notre Dame down around a 10 seed for the college football playoff, which I think is really interesting. I don't think most of them put up what they think the records are going to be, but if they're going to be a 10 seed, then I think that that's probably a 10-2 record, most likely. And then in that case, it's, who you lost to. Like I did see one bracket that had Notre Dame as a 10 seed and Florida State. I think they basically had them as ACC champion. Again, they didn't have record, but now Florida State obviously can claim one of those 4 first round buys just by winning the ACC, but they also have to be one of the highest, rated conference champions in that scenario. But I would think that probably means that they think that Florida State is going to beat Notre Dame by the fact that they have them, as a team with one of those buys and have Notre Dame down as a 10 seed. DJ says Joel Klatt has them as a 5 seed. I'm a little tongue-tied for some reason today. I don't know if I'm trying to talk too fast or what, but I'll work on that. Couple fun ones here from Clear Screen 25. In or out, Vince throws something at the TV after the announcers gush about the physical prowess of James Rendell and how he can be a dangerous weapon for a fake punt.
I'm gonna say out. I don't think Vince is the type of guy to chuck things at the TV, because if he breaks the TV, then I think he will have something broken on his body by the end of the day as well.
Yeah, I don't think Vince is I don't think he's a throw stuff at the TV guy. Now he might be a say stuff, yell stuff at the TV kind of guy. I'm betting on that. I don't know what it's like around the house, like how often the kids are watching with him when he's watching games and stuff like that. But I don't think he'll throw, so I'll go out on that. Then he says, bonus in or out. Simultaneously, Vince yells, can we worry about how well he punts the freaking ball first? Now that I will go in on. I will go in on that for sure. Joe says he doesn't think Notre Dame gets in with a 10-2 record. I mean, obviously, if you have 2 losses, you're going to push to the bubble. But the question is going to be, and I think that we did this summer at some point when we were looking at some of this, like if you look at what the records of those teams in that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that are going to be in that range, they're all going to have multiple losses. So, again, it's not Notre Dame is not going to be out of the equation just because they have 2 losses. Like who the losses are to, who the wins are against are going to matter. But if they do have 2 losses, that obviously means either they've lost to 2 of the better teams on the schedule, so like, is there room for other quality wins to really prove that they deserve to be in based on the rest of the schedule? Or maybe they got upset by somebody, that obviously they weren't supposed to lose to, and then that obviously casts some doubt as well. But like, say you beat Texas A&M and then you turn around a month later or, at the end of the season and you lose to USC, something like that. I mean, remember the times Notre Dame has been to the playoff, the 2 times in 18 and 20, they had to finish the season. Were those both Yeah, yeah, because those were even numbered years. I mean, USC hasn't been a pushover at the end of the season, is what I'm saying, even in some years where they've been down a little bit. From Sean Kelly, 15. In or out, Riley Leonard goes over 2,600 passing yards this season. His last healthy year, 2022, at Duke, he was over 2,600.
I'll say over because I think he's going to have his best passing season as a college quarterback. I don't think he's had this many weapons around him on offense, and he definitely hasn't had a coordinator quite like Mike Denbrock either.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, wasn't we all scoffed at the Sam Hartman over under for the season last year, and then he ended up what was it, just over 2,600, 2,689 yards that he had last year. I thought he was going to be over 3,000 easily. I'm going to go in, like Shamrocks and Shenanigans is saying, if the guy's healthy all season, there's no reason he's not going to go over 2,600. Now, again, if they're blowing some of these teams out and then Jelly gets to come in and get some snaps and all that different kind of stuff, that could alter some of it. But I'm going to go in on Riley Leonard over 2,600 because of both his skill, the receiver skill that he's got around him, and the difference in the offense that he's going to have this year compared to what Hartman had last year with Mike Denbrock as the coordinator. Interesting next one. In or out on Joe Rudolph still being at Notre Dame in 2026?
I think that's a tough question because we're now going to start getting into the true, Joe Rudolph era. His recruits, his, overall development and coaching of players. But, before this, he was at Wisconsin from 2015 to 2021. And then he was at, Virginia Tech for one season, I believe. I think it's going to be something similar to Wisconsin. I think that, as long as Notre Dame is doing what they're supposed to and they keep developing these offensive linemen, I think he'll be here for the long haul, essentially.
I feel like people are judging Joe Rudolph already based on decisions that he's making on this line that they haven't even got a chance to actually judge, what they look like. And and some of it goes back to last year as well with the Coogan decision over Shrouth. And then, people are like, well, look at the way Shrouth did at the end of the year. Obviously he was better. They've all said, including Shrouth, that he still had improvements to make coming out of training camp to get to the point that he was when he finally got to play at the end of the season. Was Coogan perfect? No. But, Coogan still played on a Joe Moore Award semifinalist offensive line last year. So I think Joe Rudolph is going to be here. I think that this is all going to work itself out. And the other part of this is Joe Rudolph can't control if Charles Jagasaw gets hurt. He can't control anybody getting hurt, So that's part of this as well. And this DK, great point. People wanted Al Golden fired after 1 year, and look at where we are now. I think that there are still some people who would rather just see Mike Mickens promoted if Al Golden goes and gets a job someplace else. But I think people are in general pretty much in agreement that Al Golden worked out. Good point, DK. From Poly 1029, we in and we out. Notre Dame will have a first or second team All-American on offense this year.
Man, I just have to say out on this. I think they have a young offensive line. I think that Riley Leonard, does he have the potential to be a top 4 quarterback in college football? I do think so. I think he gives you the best shot, maybe an outside shot at wide receiver or maybe Mitchell Evans. But I just looking at it on the surface, I think a lot of their talent in terms of All-American is on the defensive side of the ball. I think Riley Leonard is your best shot at offense, but again, there's just a lot. There's going to be a lot of other good quarterbacks in college football this season. So if I had to, if I was looking at this in terms of, like the gambling side of things, I would lean more so towards the out. I think there'd be more value in the out.
I think that Riley Leonard gives you a good shot. Jeremiah Love is going to give you a good shot, and Mitchell Evans is going to give you a good shot. Typically, it's the offensive linemen and the tight ends that seem like where the shot has come from. Because we're talking first or second team and not just first, I'm going to go in on this. And it's largely because of what you're saying. Riley Leonard has to stay healthy, and if he's healthy, I think he's going to have a really good shot to do that by season's end. Now, first or second team, that means, and remember, there are, what is it, 5 or is it 6 different organizations, like for the major.
That's true. I did forget that there is.
All you've got to do is show up as a second team on one of those. So
did forget about that aspect.
So I'm going to go in on that.
And I feel like, too, if they have an undefeated season, there's got to be someone that makes an All-American list somewhere.
Yep. Also from Pauly 1029, in or out, IB is the premier source for all Notre Dame content. Wait, don't answer. That's an easy we are in. Just a simple appreciation for the entire staff. Thank you very much, Pauly 1029. Much appreciated. Oh, we got multiples here from Rabid Nile. Okay. In or out, after Notre Dame wins and Jesse does his first whiteboard of the season, he will take too long, but Sean won't mind because Notre Dame had a huge victory. Are you in or out on that? I guess this is on me. I'll say I'm in.
I think that's more so of an in, but I think it'll come more from a defensive standpoint than an offensive standpoint. I think Notre Dame is going to do a lot defensively to shut down Texas A&M.
So what you're saying is you're going to come with a lot of defensive whiteboard.
Yeah, I think they're going to do a lot to, like what they did against USC last year. I think they're going to do a lot to confuse a young quarterback starting off the season against a really good defense.
Okay. Ready to bring it. I'll be ready to see it. We'll have a lot of fun if that happens. I do agree with that, DK. Craig was kind of in the back of my head, as a potential All-American type, but still need to see this line play. I think we all need to see this line play. We're either going to be feeling a lot better or a lot worse about the line when it's all said and done after the first game. In or out, after the A&M game, there will be at least one post on the message board complaining about the color combinations of the patch and the numbers. Bonus, in this color combination string of messages, someone will whine about the pants colors. Again, this is an easy in. There's going to be somebody.
There's always someone
sees the uniforms for the first time, and then they've got something to complain about. So definitely in on that. In or out, after seeing Christian Gray's performance, Vince won't miss Cam Hart for a while. I don't know. Vince might always be pining for Cam Hart, but I think what strikes me the most about seeing Christian Gray in person, and I know it's not like this isn't completely obvious watching him on the field, but he is long. He is long-limbed, and that's what you need on that side. And I think that Vince is ultimately going to be very happy, as much as he talked about how Cam Hart was, the off the radar guy, under the radar, and all that different kind of stuff last year. So I'll go in on this. In or out? Go ahead, Jesse.
I'll say out.
You think Vince is just always going to complain, basically?
Vince has his guys, and Vince is also a guy who will begrudgingly hold on to things for a while. I think he still is on the train of Caleb Williams won't be a better off situation for the Bears.
Vince was trying to float Cam Hart as a defensive rookie of the year candidate in the NFL in the mailbag show. Yeah. So I might have to reconsider.
He might, in order for that to happen, he's got to have 6 interceptions.
Yeah, exactly. Which I guess could happen. I mean, he's playing for Harbaugh, but I'll just go in. I think he's going to be very happy with Christian.
He would have been a better fit in Washington.
Oof, but I'm glad he didn't end up there. In or out, there'll be one week 1 upset, but it won't be in College Station.
Yeah, I think that I'll say in on that. I think there will be an upset just because, I'm not a believer in preseason rankings, to be honest with you. I don't think rankings should come out until after the first, couple games of the season. So I think naturally there's going to be a team overrated and a team underrated, and there'll be some sort of quote unquote upset. But to me, it's not an upset because we don't really know anything about these teams until we get some sort of sample size.
Here's why I've got to be out on this question, because technically Notre Dame is an underdog in this game, and I do think Notre Dame is going to win the game. So even if I think there's going to be another upset, this question says it won't be in College Station. So I've got to be out on this because I think Notre Dame's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, right now Notre Dame would be considered an upset because Texas A&M is the favorite.
Yeah. Yep. So for that reason, I have to be out. In or out, Notre Dame will win, and besides Riley Leonard, the biggest difference will be the coaching of Mike Denbrock and how he covers the gaps on the left side of the offensive line. Now, I should say this will be something we hit on the whiteboard next week. I want you to, put your thinking cap on with some of that, like how that comes into play potentially. But you can just answer this question right now. What do you think of that, in or out?
I'm going to say out on that. I don't think there's going to be gaps on the left side of the offensive line. I think they're going to put together a strong offensive line unit that they trust, and that's going to get the job done. I think that you'll more so see the biggest difference in the coaching of Mike Denbrock will how they are going to run the ball. It's not going to be more of the duo scheme. It's going to be more again how Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard in combination run the ball together. I think that's going to be the biggest difference in coaching that we'll see from Mike Denbrock.
Yeah, how much is Riley Leonard like part of the game plan, specific to his runs? I don't know.
I think early on, not a lot, but as the game goes on, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
wear out the eyes and the discipline of the defense, and he's finally going to start pulling the ball here and there.
Right. And we kind of saw some of that in the Notre Dame game last year in the second half, where some different things like that started happening when they came back a little bit. And I just think you're going to see those RPOs. You're going to let a veteran quarterback, be able to kind of see with his own eyes which direction he's going to go. And I think that that's going to help it as well. So I'll go in. I mean, you've got Mike Denbrock as your offensive coordinator, and you've got a really good veteran quarterback to go with him. A scroll of questions from DJ here. In or out, the defense holds A&M under 18 points.
I'll say that's a good line to be at. I'll say in because I think they're going to be at like 17. I honestly believe the team that gets to 20 points wins this game. If you get over 20, I think that's going to be the winner. So if Notre Dame wants to win, I think that 18, I think like 2 touchdowns and a field goal, or maybe a touchdown and 2 field goals is kind of where I'm at in that neighborhood.
Usually I don't start formulating what I think the score is going to be until late, but probably because this is an opener and it's a bigger game. And, I've just been, looking at some of the matchup all summer long and stuff like that. 17 is the number that I have had in my head as the limit for Texas A&M. So I'm going to be in on this. They will hold them under 18, and I agree. Like, if that's the case, then definitely the team that gets to 20 points wins the game, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that A&M is going to have a hard time scoring against Notre Dame. I think a lot of people on this side think that. I think that people on the other side, for whatever reason, aren't as sold on Notre Dame's defense. So it could be a big wake-up call nationally. Could be
Well, the
let's ring
crazy
that
part
bell.
about that is their defensive line is going to be great. They're going to have
Mhm.
solid. I mean, they're going to be solid, in my opinion, where it matters the most in the interior. You have Riley Mills and Howard Cross who are going to stuff the run and create internal pressure. I think they've upgraded, at the Viper and defensive end position with RJ Oben. I think you're going to see a combination of, like Burnham, Traore, and I can't think of Botello as well. And then we all know that their secondary, when healthy, they have two All-Americans in the secondary between Benjamin Morrison, Xavier Watts, and then you're filling in the gaps with some of the younger guys as well that are super talented. And to me, I guess the biggest question mark becomes the linebacker position, but I like the approach of rotating 5 really talented linebackers in, led by Jack Kaiser, who is going to be the guy that you're going to trust. He's going to be the commander out there, kind of leading these younger guys into battle. But they have the talent at the linebacker position. And I think having talent is more dangerous than having veterans, because guys that are young with talent just want to go out there and fly around and make plays. And I think that's what's going to really benefit them against Texas A&M.
So I'm seeing a lot of score predictions fly up here in the chat. And DJ's follow-up question is in or out on Notre Dame's offense scoring at least 24 points. And I am shocked at how many people I see like with Notre Dame.
I would be really surprised if Notre Dame gets over 30. I definitely don't see them getting over 40. I think a comfortable range to feel good about them would be like 21 to 27-ish. And a really good day would be them getting over 30 points.
See, that's what I'm thinking as well. Now, my asterisk to that, I guess, is I do think that by the fourth quarter, I think that especially with Notre Dame's defensive line and potentially with the linebackers as well, I think that there's a good chance that Notre Dame's numbers are just going to be able to wear Texas A&M down, and maybe you get like a late garbage time mistake touchdown or something like that kind of tacks on an extra touchdown at the end of the game, and that's what gets you over 30 points potentially. I could see something like that happen. I think 40 is a little bit much, though. We'll get to the forecast here in a little bit because we're going to be talking about that. There are some thunderstorms that are starting to pop up. Now that is a week away, but there are some.
Yeah, come on. What do we mean?
Yes.
You're telling me you can spot scattered showers.
You're going to trust the weatherman to tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone 9 days from now?
That's what I mean.
We'll see. And then DJ also says, in or out by Monday morning postgame, ESPN, non-believing podcasters, and Bud Elliott will be saying, I told you Notre Dame was dangerous. In or out on that?
I definitely think there will be more bandwagoners come Monday, especially if the offense has the performance that a lot of people are saying or predicting in the chat. If they somehow put up close to 40 points, I think that there will be a lot of people eating words on Monday.
I think so, too. I'm going to be honest. No offense to Bud Elliott, but I had to Google him to figure out who he was. So everybody else, okay. I will be interested to see with College Game Day going this Saturday how much they talk about, like the rest of the country, like outside of that Florida State Georgia Tech game, and potentially what they have to say about Notre Dame. I do know for a fact that there is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be this week, or I would think that they're going to be saving it for when game day is down there in College Station before the Notre Dame Texas A&M game. But I know that there is a feature coming up with Riley Leonard that is going to be on one of those two shows, doing a little fishing, as a matter of fact. As we continue with we in, we out questions. Jesse, we've had a lot of good ones so far, I think, on this show. We'll continue with even more from KMO21 11. It is more likely that Notre Dame wins at A&M by 10 plus points than the game coming down to the final possession. In or out on that?
That's a good question. Man. I don't know, with the line, with the spread where it's at, two really good defenses, first game of the season on the road, young offensive line. I actually think it's more likely that this thing comes down to, the fourth quarter kind of more final possession than it does Notre Dame blowing out a team by 10 points or more.
Well, do you consider 10 points a blowout?
I mean, that would be like at least a 13-point swing in terms of the spread. I think that's pretty considerable. Usually, barring something crazy, the spread is usually, in a ballpark. And I don't think it's going to be a 13-point swing.
It's in a ballpark, but season openers are a different thing too, because there's so much unknown. Because even, like especially for college football, if you compare it to the NFL, because even in the NFL, you do have preseason games and you've got more known commodities. Whereas in college, you've got so much turnover. And in this case, we've got a coaching change and a completely different staff. You've got transfer portal and all that different kind of stuff. So I'm in on this because kind of going back to what I was touching on before, like, and what Ryan kind of piggybacked on, A&M has no depth and Notre Dame's defensive line should be able to wear them out in the third quarter. And that's kind of how I see this game. Like, it could be close for 3/4 of the game or 80% of the game. But I think because of Notre Dame's depth, as this game wears on, I think that Notre Dame will separate itself in the fourth quarter and they will win by, again, maybe what looks like a more comfortable margin than maybe how the most of the game was played out. But I think that Notre Dame is going to be able to separate in the fourth quarter because of the depth that they have. And again, I go back to the quarterback play they have, the wide receiver play they have, all the way around. So I'm in on that, just in case I didn't make that clear. From Joe Allen, turnovers will be the deciding factor in the low-scoring game between A&M and Notre Dame, with Notre Dame coming out on top. In or out on that?
I mean, I think the turnover margin is always a big deciding factor when you're looking at, really to evenly matched close teams. So I'll go in on that. I do think that there will be, some sort of big turnover either way that kind of leads to, an important set of points, essentially.
Yeah. And again, could be a, big second half, whatever it happens to be. I just think that Notre Dame's defense is going to be better than Texas A&M's offense. And like DK is saying, A&M has more depth at that position than you think. Are we talking about the defensive line there, DK? I'm not sure, like, if that's the particular position that you're talking about. But yeah, I think a big turnover could definitely swing it, so I'll be in on that one as well. He says, bonus in out. Notre Dame's defensive secondary will be the group that creates the most turnovers.
So this one's always tough for me because if we're like, are we just like basically saying, because the linebackers aren't going to do much. Like, it's either going to be, the defensive line getting strip sacks or the secondary getting interceptions. But this question is tough for me because, good defensive pressure, while it doesn't seem like it's a lot, can force bad throws. And, the secondary is the one getting the turnover, right? But creating pressure either in the middle or on the outside, that can lead to turnovers. And again, even though the secondary gets the credit for it, rushing a quarterback into a read or, rushing him into maybe a defender that he doesn't see is a big part of the game. So do I think that, I guess, ultimately, I'll be in because I do think that they'll have more interceptions than probably, fumble recoveries on strip sacks. But again, I still think the defensive line will play a part in that.
I mean, odds are one of Benjamin Morrison, Xavier Watts, Christian Gray. I would like that little triumvirate right there. I would give them high odds to be in on one of the turnovers. predicting how it's going to come is a little bit harder. Like when I look at Connor Weigman, he hasn't played a ton in his career, but he also only has 2 career interceptions. Now it's in 9 career games, so it's not like he's, thrown a bunch of interceptions. He just hasn't played that much, and in terms of, how good are the defenses that he's played and all that kind of stuff. Like I realize this isn't the buy, sell, hold show, but I would probably be in a holding pattern just because it is so hard to predict where the turnovers are going to come from.
I will say that I think the most important piece of this secondary for A&M and really throughout the entire season is going to be when they go into nickel on some of those long down situations, because I think their run game is their run defense is going to be great, and I think that Clark is ultimately going to be the guy to kind of
hold that thought. I scrolled forward a little bit here. We'll get back to these other questions, but this kind of ties into this question from Al Gilmore. Is this Andrew Gilmore? Is that what he's reminding me right here? Was this Andrew Gilmore? Al Gilmore 2 on the boards. Don't forget about Moose Muhammad. The slot is pretty good. So we in, we out on the most important matchup for the defense for Notre Dame is the new nickel, Jordan Clark, versus A&M slot receiver, Moose Muhammad, the son of Muhsin Muhammad, former NFL wide receiver. He says he can be electric, and Clark will have to play man coverage when Golden blitzes because Golden blitzes a lot. In or out on that, Jess?
Yeah, I'm a big in on that because of what I was just talking about. Notre Dame is going to do well, in my opinion, of getting, in those early downs and forcing Texas A&M to, 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6 type situations where you want to bring, a nickel guy on the field. And we know that Al Golden's not just going to sit there and let you run your play how you think you're going to. He's going to provide some sort of confusion, some sort of discomfort. And we know that's blitzing. And sometimes the blitzing is maybe not warranted, but I'm willing to roll my dice with Al Golden that he's going to succeed in the blitzes more than he's going to fail. But of course, when you run blitzes, you have to be able to play, lockup coverage on the backside. And we know what, Morrison, Gray, and Watts and Don Schuler and, all those guys can do. But it's going to be a matter of how Clark, the extra defensive back on the field, can handle, that smaller, shiftier kind of slot position.
And there's a couple of different things on Muhammad. One, he has a name. So again, when you're the son of an NFL wide receiver and you play NFL for a Power 5 school in the SEC, I think that helps you. Now Power 4 school in the SEC. He's got a very similar build to a Jaden Greathouse. Like, I look at his numbers though, like 27 receptions last year, 345 yards, 38 catches 2 years ago. He basically averages right around 13 yards per reception. He's more of a stick mover. Now, he's probably going to be more prominent in this year's offense based on attrition and all that kind of stuff. So I do think it's going to be a very important matchup, though. Mostly, I think from like a chain moving perspective. Like I think that is going to be a key matchup, but also what Andrew is saying, because of the fact that there's likely to be some one-on-one man-to-man matchups and stuff like that. And because of the penchant that Golden has for blitzes, I'm in on it. Now I will say, like, just based on a couple of fairly, competitive type situations we got to see Jordan Clark in those 5-period practice availabilities, he was looking pretty good out there. I liked the man skills that we saw in the very limited windows that we were able to see the last couple practices out there. So I'm confident in his ability. But the other thing with Muhammad too is they don't just play him in the slot. So it's not just going to be Jordan Clark. They will move him out to the boundary and do some other stuff with him as well. So, but again, he's got that like a Jaden Greathouse type body, around 6'1", big bodied type guy. And when you can do that both out of the slot and outside, he's got some versatility to him, that can make him a potential scary matchup. Our old friend Ballpeen Shillelagh. No one position group dominates the game in the opener, but all contribute to a more balanced and dominant performance than we're used to seeing. In or out on that. So no one position group dominates, but basically you're getting great contribution across the board.
No, I'm out on that. I think that the secondary is going to dominate this game. I think it's going to provide fits for Texas A&M the entire game. And I think on the flip side, Notre Dame's wide receivers are going to dominate compared to Texas A&M's. And I think that's going to be the ultimate difference makers. I think Notre Dame's secondary is going to be better and give, A&M's wide receivers a harder time. And I think Notre Dame's wide receiver room is more talented and is due for a breakout with a quarterback like Riley Leonard and Mike Denbrock's offense.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with what you're saying. I still kind of have to see it from Notre Dame's wide receivers, but I feel like between Notre Dame's defensive line and Notre Dame's secondary, both of those units are going to have a chance to be really dominant. And if the defensive line is dominant, then that's going to lead to the secondary ultimately being dominant as well. And then maybe you see some of those turnovers that we were hypothesizing about a little bit ago. So I'm going to be out on that based on.
I mean, that's ultimately going to be the deciding factor in that game is whose wide receivers are going to perform more.
Yeah. And I think that Notre Dame's secondary, just based on everything, based on what we know about Notre Dame's secondary, I mean, you've got the best defensive player in the country coming back, another All-American who's going to be over there, Benjamin Morrison, and a potential All-American with a guy like Christian Gray, and then you throw in Jordan Clark. I think that Notre Dame's secondary sets it up to a chance for them to be really dominant in this game. Ballpeen also says, we have such a good special teams punt play with Rendell and the squad that Jesse covers it in his first whiteboard of the season for fear of disappointing Vince. We in or we out on that, Jesse?
I'm just going to say out because I don't know what they're really going to do, some spectacular special teams punt play in the first game of the season. I just think they're going to do well I just think Rendell's going to do good about pinning them, inside their own territory. I don't think that Texas A&M is going to get a lot of advantageous field position, to start the drive. Like, I don't see them starting a drive on like the 40 or at midfield or, you know what I mean? I think they're going to be kind of pinned within at least their own kind of 25-yard line for most of their drives. And I think that's going to be, because of Rendell, but I just think it's going to be good old-fashioned punting. I don't think it's going to be anything extraordinary.
And that's the thing. I mean, you're going to see it. It's not going to look crazy on TV, but that ball is going to go high in the air. And if he performs anywhere close to what we've seen him, when we got to see him early in practice, he's going to put it right where he wants to. It's interesting because, the Chicago Bears are doing the Hard Knocks right now, and Tory Taylor, who was the Iowa punter last year, and the Bears drafted in the 4th round, he is another one of these Pro Kick Australia guys. And he was just kind of hanging out over there in Melbourne and found out about Pro Kick. And the next thing you know, he's winning the Ray Guy Award at the University of Iowa and getting drafted in the 4th round. And Rendell's punts, like physically, they look a little bit different than what Tory Taylor's look like, but the result is basically the same. Both of these guys are just tremendously accurate with where they, one with the height that they get on the punts and the hang time, and 2 with the accuracy that they have when it comes down. So I don't know how much there'll actually be to whiteboard in that, but we'll see. Maybe there's something worth doing. We'll find out. With the recently announced announcers for the opener, Irish fans should mute the coverage and sync the video coverage to the radio broadcast. In or out on that? I'll just go in because you should always, that's the best way to watch any game is mute the TV and turn on the radio broadcast. So I've got to be in on that.
So my question would be, who is it? I haven't even seen who the announcers are.
It is Fowler and Herbstreit.
Oh, man. I'll give Herbstreit a quarter and see if he's, the the same old kind of annoying Herb Street. But if it's, I've muted Herb Street before. I will definitely say that. And if that means, syncing up the radio broadcast, then I'm 100% all for it. But I, like you, as a true fan, the radio broadcast is the way to go, right? If you want to feel, the passion and, the more of the ambiance, like you're at the game from a Notre Dame perspective, I think definitely the radio broadcast is the way to go.
Absolutely. DJ says he doesn't know how to sync. I'll get Vince to see if he can explain it, because I know you have to kind of like you pause one or something like that. I don't know if
that's usually what I do.
Yeah.
But then if you do that, you can't go on the medias because they're always going to be ahead of you. So just put your phone on do not disturb, because there's always going to be a friend that's ahead of you. There's always going to be someone at the game kind of live tweeting, in the big moments. So just make sure notifications are off. Make sure if that's the route you're going to go, you just need to understand that you're naturally going to be behind a little bit.
USMA 87 asking how he can find the radio broadcast in California. If you go to the Odyssey app, and I'm going to spell it for you because it's not like
it's AUD Odyssey.
Yeah. If you download the Odyssey app, AUDACY, like when you look at it, you think it says Audacity, but it's not Audacity. It's just Odyssey. So you go in there, you set it up, and then like it's got a lot of different options. Like you can find your favorite teams and all that kind of stuff that you want to follow, and it'll give you different options for radio stations. Like if you want to follow, because like there's like a like a Dallas station that I follow, and so I'll listen to some of their shows, and obviously the Notre Dame broadcasts are going to be in there. So you just do that. You download the Odyssey app, and you'll find all the Notre Dame radio broadcasts in there. So free PSA, shout out Odyssey. There you go. Ryan says Catholic Network. Okay. Notre Dame home game bagpipes, courtesy of the Notre Dame Bagpipe Band, are pivotal in creating the quintessential Notre Dame game day atmosphere. We in or we out on that? I haven't actually heard the bagpipes, and I don't know how long. I know, you've been like in the stands to a Notre Dame game more recently than me. What do you think about that, Jesse? In or out?
I'm actually in on that. Anytime, it used to be, I was going to when I was growing up almost at what felt like every home game, but now it's like I'm maybe, lucky to make one home game per season. And, to me, that's part of the entire atmosphere. I always, watch the player walk. I watch the bagpipes and the band, the bagpipe band, I guess, as you could say, as they're going through. It's just, to me, it's like, it's just part of the whole experience, and it kind of sets the tone for the entire day.
Yeah. I like the bagpipes as well. I think that'd be fun sometime if, like, at a basketball game, they brought out some bagpipes. I can't imagine like how loud that would sound, and like the stereo sound inside a basketball arena with the bagpipes, just like the way they project and stuff like that. I think that would be very cool. You could just, like, I was going to say AC/DC, like in the Bon Scott years used to, use a lot of bagpipe. Fred Benson wants to know how much it costs on Odyssey for the Notre Dame broadcast. It's absolutely free. Just download it. It's got, it's got your basic radio ads and stuff like that during the broadcast. And so it's free. Just download the app, and there's no extra charge for any of it. It's pretty cool. And you can listen to, basically anything that's broadcast, football, men's and women's basketball, hockey, Notre Dame, all the Notre Dame broadcasts, they're all in that Odyssey app. So if you like the other sports too, you can listen to any of that as well. 99 problems, but BK ain't one, says, in or out, fan emotions aside, it's better for a team to alternate between elite quarterbacks and program quarterbacks with upside, because it leads to more long-term positional stability at the most important position in the game. This is also said with the current transfer portal system in mind. He wrote a book on this, and this is, I believe, pertaining to quarterback recruiting.
Hmm.
So basically what he's saying is you get an elite guy 1 year and then, like a program guy with upside the next year. And then you go back to an elite guy the next year, in or out on that. I'll go ahead and answer. I'm out. I think that you need to get as elite, you need the highest possible talent in every recruiting cycle at that position. And if some guy ends up transferring, you live with it. This is obviously, sort of like people are trying to find a way, to feel good about the fact that Deuce Knight, might decommit or whatever. And it's like, oh, do we really need an elite quarterback in this class? Always get the elite quarterback. You need the highest caliber quarterback in every cycle. Guys are going to transfer. Like you look at, most of the elite programs, they stay elite for that reason. So I'm going to, and you look at where Notre Dame is, because we've talked about that blue chip ratio. And even though that number has dipped a little bit the last couple of cycles, what compensates for that is you have a CJ Carr and you've got a Deuce Knight, still as of right now committed, and you've got a guy like Noah Grubbs. So you can live with that overall blue chip ratio number coming down a little bit as long as you're hitting with those quarterbacks every year. And then, like I said, once you get them here, you live with the fact that there might be you're probably going to have to lose a guy or two, because he ultimately decides, well, I actually do want to play sooner than later. But you've got to go out and you got to keep shooting your shot with as high a possible quarterback recruits as possible every year, not hit and miss, because then that leads you back down, because it's somewhat ironic that this was submitted by 99 problems, but BK ain't one. I mean, that's basically, kind of back to BK thinking with recruiting the quarterback.
You've given me time to think about this.
I knew you needed some.
It's not an easy question, because I understand kind of where you're coming from. It's like you have an elite and you kind of have a backup guy that you're developing in the background. And if everything, all else fails, well, at least you have a guy that you've developed for 3 years and can kind of step in. And even though he's probably not elite, he's going to get the job done. I just have to be out on this, because the example that came to mind is, like look at Alabama when they had, Mac Jones, Tua, Jalen Hurts, like all in the same room at the same time. Do you think they were, concerned about having, all of those elite quarterbacks?
Oh, we got too much talent.
They found a way for that to work, and Jalen Hurts had to ultimately, end up transferring out. And I don't think that there's anything, wrong with that. But when we're talking about, I think at other positions, I think I could be in on this. But when you're talking about quarterback, I mean, it's the ultimate game changer. Look at what Trevor Lawrence did for Clemson, and he came in as a true freshman. A few games into the season, Dabo was ready to pull the trigger, and put him in there. And so to me, it's just like you have to always be aiming for the elite quarterback. It's the biggest difference maker. It can mask so many of your other deficiencies along maybe the offensive line, a lack of running game, maybe some wide receivers who aren't all that great. I mean, that's a la Tom Brady. He made a lot of those kind of, average to middle of the road wide receivers look great because he was so elite, right? So I can't be in on this at the quarterback position.
Totally agree. Yeah. Josh says Mac Jones wasn't considered an elite quarterback, though. Yeah, I mean, but he made it to the NFL, and that's not saying that everyone is going to end up that day. I mean, look at Ian Book. He wasn't considered an elite quarterback. He was considered a good quarterback, but he wasn't considered an elite quarterback. He made it to the NFL. Look at Stetson Bennett. He wasn't considered, obviously, an elite quarterback either, but he has a ton of talent around him. Like, Georgia is hitting and Alabama is hitting, with all those stars at all the other positions on the roster. So, I mean, it's not saying that like everyone, every quarterback that ends up making it is going to be like a high 5-star type guy. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is you don't lower your standards. You keep shooting for the highest caliber guy that you can get, and that's who you go after. You don't say, well, in this cycle, we got a 5-star or a high 4, and so now we can settle, on a low 4 or a 3-star type guy. Because, the next cycle, we're going to go back to another, high 4, 5-star type guy. Shoot for the best that you can get. I think, again, like look at Ohio State and the fact that Quinn Ewers left, the fact that Joe Burrow left, like, I'm not saying that you can't ultimately win with that, but again, like based on the way, Notre Dame's roster is shaping up with the kind of recruiting that they're doing, you just keep going after the best quarterbacks that you can get. I mean, that's ultimately, you want to start winning college football playoff games. I think that's where it starts, basically. I'm not saying that there aren't other positions that are important as well, but the better quarterback that you can get, better quarterback play you can get, the better chance you have to win playoff games. Domer Grizz, freshman running backs will combine for 3+ total touchdowns this year. So that's Aeneas Williams and Kedron Young. In and out on that.
I'll go in on that. I think that there will be plenty of opportunities in some of those MAC games, in some of the naval against the academies. I definitely think they'll get their fair share of, and I don't even think that it'll be all mop up time. I think that there will be. It is known that Notre Dame wants to rotate between at least 3 to 4, running backs. And so we know that who the 2 of those are with Love and Jadarian Price. And, I do see a big opportunity for some of those younger guys to get in and get some of those touchdowns. So I'll say I'm in mainly because of where the schedule is at.
Yeah. And one of those guys is probably going to end up being the short yardage goal line guy that Jabron Payne was last year. That role came open when Payne was injured. And then, like you said, you start getting into some of the games where you should see some mop-up opportunity. Williams and Young are, I completely agree with ND Saylor, what he's saying. Easy in on that one. From Mr. Gilmore, once again. Okay, no, that was the same question that we had from before. That's how far down I scrolled. From Jim Halloran. In or out, we trust Mike Denbrock to make in-game adjustments. Absolute in for me. Total night and day with the kind of offensive coordinator and the experience of the offensive coordinator that you have. Easiest in of the day, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think that's an easy in as well.
Jim also says a smaller, more athletic left tackle, Anthony Knapp, is a better matchup against Texas A&M. In or out on that?
I'm going to be a hold on that. I just think that it's ultimately, I don't know. I just think that you want at the left tackle position, you just want the guy who's the most sure-handed. It's the most important position on the line. Doesn't mean they have to be the most athletic, the biggest or smallest. I just think, especially for someone like Marcus Freeman, who's ultimately the end-all be-all in terms of decisions at the end of the day, they're going to go with the guy that's the most consistent. And the word he's throwing around the most is who can they trust to be out there, from snap to snap.
DJ calling it out. It's not buy, sell, hold. It's in or out. But I mean, I'm with you because like we haven't seen this guy take a live snap, a live rep against anybody. So this one is hard to say. If they think, I'll say this, and when I say they, as you said, Marcus Freeman is still the head coach, so he's still got final veto power over everything. But Joe Rudolph, in conjunction with Mike Denbrock and Marcus Freeman at a very important position out there, if they think Anthony Knapp is the best matchup, because as he said, what's best in game 1 might not be the best in game 5 or game 6. I'm going to say yes. So I will be in on it. Even though I would still like to be more in the hold as well, because I'd like to see what he looks like in a game first, but I'm going to go in. JG Y-Town. I think this might be our last question tonight. Notre Dame will score 600 points in the regular season. Last year, they scored 509 points, including the bowl game. I'm sorry, JG, but as excited as you are and as excited we all are about this offense, 600 points would mean they average 50 points per game. And I just can't go in on that. I'm sorry.
Whew. That's a big old number. I'm going to have to say out. I don't even know if they'll get to 500 in the regular season. Well,
they should get to 500 again, but
yeah, but that included the 600. Bowl game.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But still, that's a lot of points. A lot of points. All right. We've done it. Another edition of We In, We Out. A lot of great questions tonight. Appreciate it. Don't forget, again, go to the New Champions Lounge whenever we do We In, We Out, and that's where you can submit your questions each week. Indy Sailor said, too many out. Well, I mean, can't be in on everything, right? Like, got to at least try. Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
I've been honestly waiting for rapid fire all week.
I bet you have, because this is your first rapid fire of the week, I guess, isn't it?
It is.
Even think about
and my only.
Yeah, that's true. So Mike Denbrock, of course, coached at Texas A&M's Kyle Field when he was an assistant coach at LSU. And here is what Denbrock had to say about playing at Kyle Field.
Hornet's nest. I mean, it is loud, chaotic, warm, I think someone brought up. All those things are true. And it's a very, very difficult, hostile place to function, especially as the visiting team on the offensive side of the ball. So we're going to have to, and we've already done this, worked on different cadences and snap counts and things like that to make sure we're clued in. We're going to have to be careful about maybe how much motion and shifting and different things that we build within the game plan, because you can't hear. I mean, and it's hard. Communication is hard. And I think the work we've done with a good doctor about focusing and blocking out the noise, if you will, literally the noise at Kyle Field is going to be a huge factor in how we perform. And, and I think some of that too is, the confidence and calmness that we can walk into that stadium with as a program, and that comes from being successful on the practice field and building that trust in one another and the confidence in one another.
Now, as we said, it is noteworthy that with 9 games to go, there is now rain in the forecast for the 31st when Notre Dame and Texas A&M play at Kyle Field. So, which is going to be the bigger factor, do you think, next week? The heat / maybe rain, or the crowd? What do you think?
I would have to say that I think the bigger factor will be the crowd, because of a lot of what Denbrock was talking about. With the loud crowd, you might have to start changing up your cadences. You run into potential, false start penalties. You might not want to get into as much motion. You know what I mean? Because you'll be afraid guys aren't going to hit their kind of landmarks and maybe be delayed or, too fast or when they're starting and ending their motion. So at the end of the day, I think that a loud environment has more of an impact on your overall, success or function of the offense. The heat is what it is. It's just going to be hot, potentially rainy or wet. But again, the crowd kind of can dictate, how you operate your offense to more of a degree.
A lot of the crowd thing is also dictated by how quickly the road team can punch and
if you can get on top
and make something happen. I keep going back to all that buildup before Virginia Tech and Enter Sandman and all that stuff. And all it took was a big early touchdown. And even like the second time they went there, Notre Dame, like the game was closer, but like in both cases, the crowd wasn't that much of a factor. So, I don't know with A&M, is it just like that song and the entrance particular? like it does sound like, and I talked to Carter Carls, who covers Texas A&M earlier this summer. He talked about how like when the fans, like when they start doing their kind of up and down, bouncing around and stuff like that, the stadium literally starts rocking as well. So I do think, especially if you've got rookie offensive linemen who are out there, you're bound to have a false start or two. They are going to go with the clap count. It looks like I'll be curious to see how much they stick with that clap count and what that does. But the louder it stays, I do think the crowd is going to have a much bigger factor overall than the heat. I do think that Notre Dame will, from a nutrition sports performance standpoint, they'll have them all properly hydrated and ready to go. It's obviously going to be hot, but I do like Notre Dame's depth, and I like their ability to deal with that. And as I've said before, as the game goes on, it'll still be humid out there, but it'll cool off 10 or 15 degrees, and could end up being maybe a little bit of a blessing in disguise if maybe there's some cloud cover and it's not just sun beaten down even before the game and stuff like that. If there's a little bit of off and on rain, as long as there's not lightning, that's the last thing that we need. Yeah, Indy, Notre Dame for life, the cowbells as well. That's a good call. That's part of it down there as well. A lot of craziness. So yeah, I'm going with the crowd noise as well. I agree. So Marcus Freeman was asked the other day about Jaden Thomas, Notre Dame wide receiver, of course, comparing Riley Leonard to both Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen with the speed of Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. Here's what Freeman said to that.
Man, I'm no quarterback guru. JT's opinions is JT, but he's a physical, good-looking dude, man. I don't know how big Josh Allen is. I don't. And so I don't think he's Lamar Jackson, the NFL MVP, but he's exactly what we need.
So there's Marcus Freeman on it. I'm no quarterback guru. What do you think about the comparison, Jess?
Yeah, I would say that he leans more so towards Josh Allen. I would kind of shy away from the Lamar Jackson comparison because I think there's only really one of Lamar Jackson's, and
he's a
his
unicorn.
speed.
That's right.
Yeah, and what he can do. But I mean, Josh Allen is 6'5", 235 pounds. Riley Leonard is 6'4" and 215 pounds. So basically same height, a little bit skinnier. But I would go out to say that that Riley Leonard is actually probably a little bit more quicker and mobile and agile than Josh Allen. But I do think Josh Allen is a very comparable comparison. And I do believe, I don't think, I would say Riley Leonard's arm strength and talent probably isn't as, on par with what Josh Allen can do yet. But I think, a young Josh Allen, I do like that comparison for someone like Riley Leonard. I just don't think you can mix in Lamar Jackson. He's just too much of his own kind of species.
I think maybe Jaden Thomas has been playing too many video games or something. I don't know if that's where he got that comparison or what. But Lamar Jackson is just so different. Now, I think, I think the Josh Allen comparison to Riley Leonard is good when they were in college, for example, because I think even Riley Leonard is a better passer of the football than Josh Allen. When Allen was only completing 50% of his passes when he was at Wyoming before he was drafted. The thing that Allen has now is that extra layer of armor. He's thicker. I think he's got, would you say, around 20 or so pounds.
About 20 pounds on him.
But when we played the cut last week, I think about Riley Leonard and, he was talking about, do you slide or do you lower the shoulder? And his instinct is, because he's so competitive, is lower the shoulder more times than not. And so I think that mentality is definitely, more in the Josh Allen range. And again, if you look at what Josh Allen is now, what is it? 6 or so years into his NFL career. I mean, obviously Josh Allen's got a big leg up, but again, I think if you look at him when they were in college, I think that's a really good comparison. Riley Leonard to Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson, just throw that out of there. Because like you said, there's nobody else.
His speed isn't that speedy.
No. He's fast, but he's not that fast. Absolutely. And obviously Lamar Jackson, just being so thin and everything too.
I think that's the thing that's really surprised me is, he's Lamar Jackson, for how small he is, really has never taken a massive hit. Maybe it's just because he's so good and elusive that he's just doesn't. No one can get a direct blow on him.
Yeah. And that was obviously the biggest worry with him because of the fact that he is so slight, just from a physical standpoint. The worry coming out of Louisville obviously was he a good enough passer to make it in the NFL? I think that he's proven that he's a good enough passer, at least for the regular season in the NFL, but got to prove it in the postseason. Now that's the next thing that he has to answer. Otherwise, I mean, you're just Dak Prescott, right? Losing playoff games. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame and Peacock, of course, recently announced the much anticipated streaming series, Here Come the Irish. It's going to air before and after the regular season. Jess, I haven't had a chance to ask you about this yet. The number one thing you want to see in that show is blank.
The development of the offensive side of the ball. I think there's question marks literally at everywhere at the offensive line. You have a new quarterback coming in. You have a wide receiver room that is, highly questioned, scrutinized, and even more so. Like, yeah, we know the talent of Jeremiah Love, but he's not been a lead, running back. So it's like, to me, I want to see the integration of Mike Denbrock's philosophy with this young. With basically a young kind of inexperienced group on the offensive side of the ball. Like, I got a good idea what the defense is. Like, I've seen Al Golden. I know what he's about. I think defensively, I'd like to see, the development of those linebackers like Bowen, KVA, Sneed. But really, to me, it's got to be, the offensive side of the ball, because that's going to be the difference maker this season.
Do you think you're actually going to see any of that though? Like, because I realize we didn't get a chance to talk to you about it, but they're going to show, like, next week, I think it's the 29th. So a week from today, they're going to drop the first 2 episodes. So that's all going to be, there'll be some training camp stuff in there, but it's basically 2 episodes for the entire off season. And then you're not going to get another episode again until after the regular season is over in early December. So, like, to me, I just want to see, because again, they've been calling it the quote unquote hard knocks type show. Like, I want to see the candid conversations, whether it's coaches with players or players and players, whatever it happens to be, mic them up during games. We've talked about some, like the video that they did during the Duke game and that comeback last year, whether it's that or just, like in the meeting rooms, wherever it happens to be, like real candid conversations, like give us a side of things that we haven't got to see before. That's what I want to see. Somebody said Marcus Freeman's workouts. He's already put out a video on that. He's got like a men's fitness video or something. Have you noticed how much more buff he looks this year than even last year?
Oh yeah.
Checked up.
He is definitely fit. But when these shows come around, I see what you're saying. You like to see kind of like the storylines and, like you said, kind of maybe the behind the scenes, kind of, breaking down of, kind of the strategic side of things, why they're deciding to do this or that, kind of game plan decisions, that sort of stuff. But to me, in those shows, I'm more of an X's and O's kind of guy. I want to see, how these guys are kind of developing into these positions and how the pieces fall into, the puzzle of Mike Denbrock's offense.
Stymie says the wide receiver room, just in case there's juicy gossip from last year. I've got a feeling they're going to leave that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're not going to let that air.
Yeah. I will be curious to see, like, what these first 2 episodes look like, though. Like, how much is training camp? How much is spring practice? How much, like.
I mean, there's definitely going to be an episode like a day in the life of a Notre Dame athlete, like going to class, going to practice, going to the,
going to the meal, that'll be worked in there.
A meal table, going to get treatment, just like that's everyone's favorite storyline, like what it takes to be a Notre Dame football player, essentially.
I don't disagree with this, Rapid Nile Chihuahua. He says
that's what I mean. I want the game stuff.
Yes. At this point, tired of storylines. Give us the games. That's right. And that's, again, like these first 2 episodes, we're not going to get any actual game stuff. It's all going to be practice and, whatever they work in there. So, okay. So Dane Brugler from The Athletic released his preseason rankings for next year's NFL draft this week. Which is more surprising, that Benjamin Morrison comes in at number 11 on his draft prospect list, or that he doesn't have Riley Leonard anywhere in his top 50?
I think that the more surprising thing would be Benjamin Morrison at number 11. I've seen a lot of preseason. I've been following some of the preseason ranking stuff. They had, Riley Leonard at right around 80 on ESPN's list, like a couple of weeks ago. Just to be honest with you, I think that there are just more hyped up, more overall right now talented quarterbacks than Riley Leonard. And I'm not saying Riley Leonard can't get there, but the injury last season didn't help him at all. I think he's kind of become an afterthought in a lot of people's minds, but I think he has the potential to climb the most or make up the most ground.
Let me throw this at you, because I'm more surprised by the Riley Leonard because of this. So not only is Leonard not in the top 50, Connor Wegman, Texas A&M quarterback, number 24 on this list.
That's very surprising. And again, referencing the list I just told you about, they had Riley Leonard and Wegman back to back. And so
last year's list?
No, this year's ESPN list.
Oh, the ESPN list. Okay.
Yeah, the one that I was kind of seeing a couple of weeks ago. So that is the more surprising thing to me, because Riley Leonard has a track record, and he was on a lot of people's big boards before, draft mock boards before he got hurt. I've never heard of Connor Wegman before. The guy doesn't even have a full season as a starting quarterback, right?
Right. He's played in 9 games in 2 years.
We're going off talent alone and projection. And I think that Riley Leonard has still proven more as long as he can be reliable and stay healthy. And again, I think that's the thing that's on everyone's mind is the injury. Can he stay healthy? And I think that's ultimately what's holding him back. So if he has a healthy season and goes on and, does what we think he's going to this season, I do believe he's going to be one of the highest climbers by the end of the season.
But it also surprises me, though, because Wegman broke his foot last year, so like he's dealing with an injury as well. Like Riley Leonard is no more injury prone than Connor Wegman. And it surprises me that they've got him this high on the list, and I know that wasn't the question, but like the fact that they've got Wegman this high and Leonard isn't on the list, because you go back to a year ago at this time and Dane Brugler had Riley Leonard on his list going into last season, so he thought very highly of him. So like has his opinion changed that much just because of Riley Leonard's injury? Like, was there something actually in his play that he saw before that's changed his mind? I would like to know that, because again, like Wigman's only played in 9 games and he dealt with an injury of his own last year. And like Andrew was saying about Benjamin Morrison, his only issue is tackling. And I mean, I think that you can probably say that about a ton of cornerbacks. Like the main thing with a cornerback is, can you defend the pass or not? Like tackling is kind of the last the last trait, really, right? Like the last thing that you're thinking about. You're more concerned, can he cover him to prevent a situation where he even has to make a tackle? Because like Dion, that was the thing that everybody knocked with him back in the day. Antoine saying Notre Dame Cowboys in or out. Maris Leofau starts week 1 versus Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and the Browns.
I did start that earlier. Sorry, I was kind of doing some research on the back end there. This is 100% in. Maris is going to be Notre Dame's starter, the Cowboys starter at that linebacker position. JOK actually just got a nice 4-year extension on his deal. He is, to me, one of their best defensive players because of what he did at Notre Dame, his ability to be effective in the run. And I think he's one of the best coverage linebackers in the game. And I think that's what you're going to see out of Maris too. Like, we all know that, you can gripe about his runs. He had a horrible run fit to start the preseason game, but I told you
the thing about that, he was playing against the Raiders starters
right
in that game. It was the Cowboys reserves against the Raiders starters. And, it was just a real quick,
but he quickly redeemed himself and had a really good fit and made a tackle in the backfield. So like I told you, I'll give him a break on that one because it was literally his first NFL run fit of his career. Like, the nerves got to be playing a part at some point. But again, I think Maris and JOK are really kind of similar linebackers. I think JOK is better in the run game right now, but Maris is going to be really effective in coverage for the Cowboys.
So Nathan Milton posted this one on the New Champions Lounge, and I thought it would be fun to throw this one in here. What song describes how you feel about the upcoming Notre Dame football season? So what's your song, Jess?
Oh man, I'm so glad that we got to this question because I was trying to remember the name of it, and I finally was able to kind of remember it. To me, it's DMX Rough Riders.
Okay.
Do you know what song that is?
No, I don't.
Well, I'll let you go.
I'll Google it afterwards. Give me, I'm sure a lot of people probably don't know. There's probably some who do, some who don't. I just went with a Foo Fighters song, Breakout. Because I think Notre Dame is going to have a lot of guys break out this year, and they're going to break out back to the playoffs. So that's what I went with. Breakout. DMX Rough Riders anthem. All right.
Once you hear it, you'll know that you'll be like, oh, I know. I've heard this song.
Do you think I've heard it before?
You definitely heard it. You just don't know the name of it.
Right. Ryan says I used to be a Rough Rider. Yeah, like me and Teddy Roosevelt back in the day, we were down there in San Juan, storming the hill. Ryan Roll says living on a prayer. Oh man, so he's going a little doubt early on. Joe Allen. Joe went another Foo Fighters. He went Learn to Fly by the Foo Fighters. Okay. Josh, what is that? Xennials? What is that?
I think he's talking about millennials now.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Florida State's a 10.5-point favorite in their opener Saturday in Dublin against Georgia Tech. Who do you like with that spread?
A lot of people have, Florida, the ACC coming down to Florida State or Miami. I don't know if I'm going to be bought in on Florida State being, this powerhouse this season. I actually believe, Georgia Tech is actually going to be, better and kind of maybe not a dark horse, but definitely a team that I think is going to be better than what a lot of people are giving them credit for. And I know a lot of people actually think that Georgia Tech game down in Atlanta is going to be, kind of a potential trap game for Notre Dame even. So, I think Georgia Tech is going to be a solid team this year. I think they'll put up a fight in a lot of games. With that being said, I don't, with everything that's going on, I don't like Florida State in 11.5. So I'll have to go with Georgia Tech to cover that spread.
I agree. They were horrible defensively last year. They ranked 131st in defense, but I've talked about Haynes King. He led the ACC with 27 touchdown passes last year. He ran for 7. He's few too many interceptions. He's going to have to figure that out. But I mean, they returned basically all of the offense from last year. So I like Florida State to win this game, but Georgia Tech getting those 10.5 points, I will take that and run with it.
Yes.
So DraftKings has a college football playoff boost special right now. You can pick a 4-team parlay of 4 teams that you think will make it to the playoff this year. Jesse told me about this one. So who are your 4 teams that you're going with?
Yeah, so I just pulled up the list. I think this is really fun because, again, for $10, because that's a lot of DraftKings they limit how much you can bet on these boost type things. So this is a $10 max. I think it's pretty fun. You put together 4 teams that you think are going to make the playoffs. I went with 2 easy ones, Ohio State and Georgia. I think those teams are definitely, in my opinion, some of the locks. I put Notre Dame in there because I do believe they'll find a way into the playoffs, whether that's a 5 seed or maybe even down all the way down to a 10 seed. But to spice things up a little bit, it came down to me of LSU or Clemson. A lot of like the kind of the third teams, I guess, quote unquote third teams, you could say, a lot like Ole Miss and Alabama are ahead of LSU. And then in the ACC, Florida State is ahead of them. and maybe even I don't see Miami. I don't think I scrolled down far enough. But to wrap it up, my 4 teams: Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, and I'm going to go Clemson. I think Clemson's going to kind of redeem themselves this year. I think a lot of people are going to overlook them in the ACC. I think Dabo Swinney had a bad taste left in his mouth last season. I think a lot of people kind of criticize him, question him. I think he's going to come back with a really solid bounce back season and kind of remind everyone of, I am Dabo Swinney and I am, I know what I'm doing here. So those are my 4 teams.
I can't decide between Florida State and Clemson in the ACC, so I left them out of mine. I've got 3 teams that are the same as yours, though. I've got Georgia, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. And my 4th team is one of the newest teams to the Big 12. I went with the Utah Utes. I feel like they're getting pretty overlooked in that move.
Don't they have like a 7th-year quarterback as well?
Yeah, they do.
Cam Rising.
Cam Rising, yes. Thank you. His name was like slipping my brain there.
I forgot about them too, because they are a team that I've seen a lot of people's, playoff predictions, and they do have Utah and the Big 12. That's a good, it's a Power 4 conference. So they're going to get someone in there. So I do think that, if you think that Utah is the best of the Big 12, I think that's a really good decision.
Yep. So the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight is back on. Did you see this news?
I did not, but I was honestly thinking the other day, I was like, isn't this fight supposed to happen by now? Because I saw something. I saw a video of Mike Tyson.
Right. So it was supposed to take place last month in July at Jerry World in Arlington, Texas, but Tyson, it had to be postponed because he got nauseous and dizzy while he was on a flight back in May. So it got postponed. I think they might have looked for, like a different opponent, but they couldn't find one. But it's back on now. It's going to take place in the middle of November. Still going to be there in Arlington. Scale of 1 to 10. What's your excitement level for this?
I might be in the minority on this. I'm not going to say it's a 10 out of 10, but it's definitely in the range of an 8 or 9. I never got to see Mike Tyson really fight in the heyday, right? So to me, it'd be really fun to see him. I know it's not the same, but I've watched podcasts with him. I've watched interviews with him. The dude is still crazy in the head. Like, he still has a fighter's mentality. He's going to go out there and try to kill someone. So I want to see that. Like, again, I know it's not going to be prime Mike Tyson, but to at least see him, live fighting someone is great. And then you throw in the combination that he could potentially knock out someone like Jake Paul, complete, you could use a lot of words in this situation. I just not a fan of him. And so, again, you throw in the potential of him knocking out someone that is so cocky and arrogant like Jake Paul. I'm 100% in on this.
I'm 100% with you as well. So it is 9. I don't know what day of the week. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. I think it's November 15th. So that is going to be
like Tyson isn't
going to Friday night. I like that. It's a Friday night.
He's not going to take this lightly. You know what I mean? Like, he is going to the preparation that he is going to put into this. And like I said, like, I know his mental, just like he was just talking about, he studies the art of war and different war tactics. And like, he still thinks about this stuff. It's not something that he's just going out there to do for fun. He is going to go out there and try to rip off Jake Paul's head.
Yes. And I just, I miss, like when I was, gosh, I even younger than you, basically, like, it was really when pay-per-views were kind of getting started. We would get the Tyson pay-per-views, and we'd watch him, fight, Spinks and, all these different guys. And, the fights would typically last 90 seconds. It seemed like, they didn't last very long because he would just pulverize guys out there. But, there's really the fight game is all but gone. So like, this is the last little bit of nostalgia we can kind of go back to. And I'm very excited to see this. I don't know how long it's actually going to last, but I'm excited to see Mike Tyson go out there and fight a YouTuber and see if he can just beat him into oblivion in the middle of the ring. So fill in the blank. It's blank that Tennessee Titans quarterback Will Levis has launched the world's first mayonnaise-inspired fragrance in conjunction with Hellmann's. It's called Will Levis No. 8.
It's repulsive is what it is. I barely eat, mayo as is. And I will not eat Miracle Whip mayo. I will not eat, it's got to be real authentic mayo for me to eat it. And even then it's a stretch. Like it's very far and few what I'll actually put mayo on. But I just, when you're talking about a fragrance or a cologne, like I just thinking about mayo is repulsive. But I looked up, what do you think is like the main, they're calling it the main accord of the scent. Like, what do you think is like the main thing that you're going to smell in this cologne?
I have no idea. Like, I'm thinking that, like dogs might like this, like
so I'm looking it up right now.
What is a mayonnaise inspired fragrance going to smell like?
So it says main accords. It's mainly vanilla, aromatic, powdery, fresh, and sweet. So like, are they just using the mayo color, like that white kind of color and relating that to a more vanilla scent? Because like anything that smells like mayo, like I said, repulsive. Like you couldn't convince. And it's like, if you're a man, are you really going to put on some mayo cologne to go out and try to like woo some ladies?
It might be the worst part of mayonnaise is the smell of mayonnaise.
Right.
It's like, and you're going to spray that on yourself and that's supposed to attract people. I don't know, man. I don't know.
They said it's sold out though. It's sold out within, let me see here. Called Will Levis, number 8, Parfume de Mayonnaise. It's sold out within 90 minutes of it being released.
Insane. They're actually like, we have a pretty good sample size.
This is a Charles Barkley take right here. Those San Antonio women.
Let's keep it nice. Let's keep it nice. But I just like, yeah, like, are you going to spray it on your turkey sandwich or what? Like, I don't get it, but I guess somebody's getting it. I don't know. Okay.
It's sold out.
Okay. I guess I'll have to, like, I wonder where they're selling it even, like, can you go to Macy's? Are they going to have Parfum de Levis number 8? Mayo coffee creamer. Oh my gosh.
That was his thing though at the draft. Remember, he like mixed it. He put mayonnaise in. I can't remember what it was.
Is that where it came from? Like
yes.
Like he was doing mayonnaise something?
Yes, it came from the draft night, and I can't, or like maybe like right before leading up to the draft, there was just something that came out where he is just like overly obsessed with mayonnaise, and that he said at the combine that he merely added the condiment to his coffee as a joke, but I think it kind of went viral at that point. You could literally, I'll tell you this right now. Mayo is good in like 2 things, aiolis and like maybe a BLT sandwich. I've been actually, Naomi puts mayo on her burger, like mayo on one side of the bun and ketchup on the other. I tried it. It's actually pretty good. But like, again, you can't convince like a mayo or like maybe on like a deli sub sandwich. You know what I mean? That's where you could convince me. But I think anything out of a sandwich, I'm not doing a lot of things with mayo.
Well, in Amsterdam, they put their French fries in the mayonnaise. So they drown it in that stuff. I don't know. I can't. Like, I can eat it with a tuna fish sandwich. Like a little bit of mayo in there. Like if I'm doing like a tuna fish sandwich, you're probably not big on the tuna, but
I don't mind some tuna.
Tuna fish. I'll eat
Chicken
a pimento
salad.
cheese sandwich, something like that. That's as far as I can go with the mayo. And it's mostly Miracle Whip over mayo as well. Like it grosses me out when they do that the Duke's mayo bowl and they dump the over the coach's head. That just makes me sick watching that. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here. As always, a lot of great questions for We In, We Out that we had earlier tonight. Don't forget, you can always go to the Champions Lounge, subscribe to the Champions Lounge. If you're not already a subscriber with the season getting ready to start, trust me, you're going to want to have that. You're going to want to be there. Hit that like button before you leave. Have a good one, and we will talk to you Next week, game week is coming. IB Nation Sports Talk.